The bailiff called the courtroom to order, but all eyes weren't on the judge. They were on the black teenager, standing alone at the defense table. His suit hung awkwardly on his frame, the sleeves a little too long, and his hands trembled as he clutched a stack of papers. He couldn't have been older than 19. Whispers rippled through the room, some people smirking, others shaking their heads as if they already knew the ending. The judge leaned forward, eyes narrowing in mock amusement. "Son, are you lost? This isn't a talent show." His words dripped with condescension. A ripple of laughter broke out across the courtroom, echoing like a cruel chorus. But the young man didn't flinch. He slowly stepped forward and placed a single document on the bench. The judge, still smirking, glanced at it casually, and then his face stiffened. The laughter died instantly. The teenager's name was Jordan Matthews. To the world, he looked like just another kid caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. But what nobody in that courtroom knew, not the audience, not even the smug judge, towering above him was that Jordan had already walked the halls of Harvard Law. He wasn't a defendant. He wasn't a joke. He was a graduate. And tonight, he was about to rewrite the story they thought they knew. The case was supposed to be simple, an eviction hearing, a struggling family versus a wealthy landlord. The kind of case where the outcome was practically guaranteed. The landlord had money, connections, and the arrogant assurance that the system always leaned in his favor. He showed up with a team of lawyers, polished and confident, already grinning at the sight of Jordan alone at the table. The judge chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "Young man, where is your attorney? Surely you don't think you're going to represent yourself in my courtroom?" His tone wasn't just doubtful, it was insulting. Jordan lifted his chin, his voice steady. "Your Honor, I am the attorney." Gasps spread through the room. The landlord's lawyers exchanged bewildered glances, stifling laughter. The judge raised an eyebrow, clearly irritated. "You expect me to believe that? You look barely old enough to drive." Jordan calmly reached into his folder and pulled out another document, sliding it forward. "Here's my license to practice law, Your Honor. I graduated from Harvard Law School, top of my class." For the first time, silence blanketed the courtroom. The smirks faded. The laughter stopped. And the judge's face, once so amused, twitched with discomfort. But instead of backing down, the judge's pride swelled. "Fine," he muttered. "If you want to embarrass yourself, proceed. Let's see if you can keep up with real lawyers." The trial began. The landlord's legal team was ruthless, throwing out jargon, citing precedents, their voices dripping with superiority. Every time Jordan stood to object, they scoffed, shaking their heads as if he were a child playing dress-up. Even the judge seemed eager to cut him off, sustaining objections against him almost immediately. But Jordan didn't falter. He waited, studied, and chose his moments with surgical precision. Then when the landlord's lead attorney tried to brush off evidence of unsafe living conditions, Jordan struck. "Objection, Your Honor," he said firmly. "I have photographs time-stamped and verified, showing mold, broken heating, and structural hazards that were reported but ignored. And according to Section 8 housing regulations, that is a direct violation of state law." He placed the photos on the desk. The courtroom murmured. The judge shifted uncomfortably. The landlord's lawyers stiffened. One by one, Jordan dismantled their arguments, exposing overlooked details and contradictions in their statements. Every move was calculated, every word precise. The underdog no one took seriously was now running circles around seasoned attorneys. The landlord, red-faced and sweating, slammed his fist on the table. "This is ridiculous. He's just a kid. He can't—" Jordan turned sharply, his voice calm but commanding. "With all due respect, sir, I may be young, but the law does not discriminate by age. It discriminates by truth. And right now, the truth is not on your side." The words hit like a hammer. The crowd erupted in whispers, some even clapping before the bailiff barked for order. The judge, now visibly rattled, leaned forward. For the first time, his tone was not mocking but measured. "Mr. Matthews, proceed." The shift was undeniable. The same man who had laughed at Jordan minutes ago was now forced to acknowledge his brilliance, and the irony was suffocating. The courtroom that once dismissed him was now hanging on his every word. Hours passed, and by the time Jordan gave his closing argument, the entire room was silent. He spoke not just of laws and rights, but of dignity, of justice, of families who deserved better than to be crushed by greed and arrogance. His voice trembled, not with fear but with passion. And when he finally sat down, even the judge couldn't meet his eyes. The verdict was clear. The eviction was overturned. The family would keep their home. The landlord stormed out, his lawyers trailing behind him in stunned silence. The family wept tears of joy, rushing to embrace Jordan, their voices breaking with gratitude. And the crowd that once laughed now stood to their feet, applauding. But as Jordan gathered his papers, he noticed something. The judge wasn't smiling. His eyes were sharp, calculating, almost threatened. He leaned over the bench, lowering his voice. "Mr. Matthews, you've made quite the impression. But don't get too comfortable. You think you've won a battle, you've just declared war. And the system doesn't take kindly to prodigies who don't know their place." Jordan froze, the weight of the words sinking in. This wasn't just about one case anymore. This was bigger, darker, more dangerous. He straightened his suit, locking eyes with the judge. "Then I guess it's time the system learned that I do know my place. And it's right here." The judge's lips curled into a thin smile. "We'll see." And with a bang of the gavel, court was adjourned. Jordan walked out into the night, the cool air biting against his skin. The family he saved was safe for now. But deep down he knew the judge's words weren't empty. They were a warning. Somewhere in the halls of power, doors were already closing against him. Because in a world built to silence voices like his, Jordan Matthews had just made himself impossible to ignore. And the battle for justice had only just begun. The next morning, Jordan's phone buzzed. An unknown number. A voice whispered through the line, "We know who you are. And if you don't back down, we'll make sure everyone else does too." The night after his victory, Jordan Matthews sat in his tiny apartment, staring at his Harvard diploma on the wall. Just hours earlier, the courtroom had erupted in applause. A family's home was saved, and the laughter of doubters had been silenced. But now, his phone lay on the table, the last words from that unknown caller echoing in his mind. "Back down, or we'll make sure everyone else does too." Sleep didn't come. Jordan tossed and turned, replaying every smirk from Judge Harrison, every glare from the landlord, every whisper in the gallery. He had exposed one crooked man, but what if the entire system was rotten? The next morning, as he walked toward the courthouse, he noticed something strange. Two men in dark suits lingered by the entrance, their eyes following him. When he entered, conversations hushed. Officers avoided eye contact. Even clerks who had once congratulated him now shuffled papers nervously, as though he carried a storm behind him. And then he saw him, Judge Harrison, sitting in his chambers, the door wide open, speaking quietly to a man Jordan didn't recognize. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, Harrison's smirk returned. But it wasn't amusement. It was a warning. Inside the courtroom, Jordan prepared for his next case. Another tenant versus a landlord. But something was wrong. The opposing counsel, normally arrogant and smug, looked jittery. When Jordan approached the bench with evidence, the judge cut him off, slamming the gavel. "Objection sustained," Harrison barked before Jordan even spoke. Confused, Jordan tried again. Every motion, every objection denied. It was as if the law itself had turned against him. The irony was suffocating. A Harvard graduate, brilliant and prepared, now silenced not by weakness, but by power. But Jordan refused to back down. When the judge tried to rush the trial, Jordan raised his voice, steady and defiant. "Your Honor, with all due respect, this is not justice. This is theater." Gasps filled the courtroom. Harrison's face turned crimson. "One more word and I'll hold you in contempt." Jordan met his gaze. "Then hold me in contempt, but the truth will not stay buried. Not today. Not ever." The crowd stirred. Phones lifted. Cameras recorded. For the first time, Harrison looked unsettled. His grip on the gavel faltered. And then, the door opened. A man in a gray suit walked in, flanked by two federal marshals. He handed a sealed envelope to the bailiff, who rushed it to the bench. Harrison ripped it open and his face drained of color. Inside was a federal summons. Judge Harrison himself was under investigation for corruption, bribery, and obstruction of justice. The dramatic irony was unbearable. The man who mocked a black teenager for being too young to belong was now stripped of his own authority in front of the same crowd he once commanded. The bailiff's voice cracked as he read aloud, "Judge Harrison, by order of the Department of Justice, you are hereby suspended pending investigation." The gavel slipped from his hand. The courtroom erupted. Some cheered, some gasped, and others simply shook their heads at the downfall of a man who thought himself untouchable. Jordan stood frozen, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Justice had spoken not through his words this time, but through the very system that tried to silence him. As Harrison was escorted out, his eyes locked on Jordan one last time. No smirk, no arrogance, only shame. The landlord's lawyers fumbled, their case crumbling without their protector. Jordan turned to the family he was defending, their eyes wet with hope. For the second time, he had turned the tide. But as he walked out of the courthouse, his phone buzzed again. The same unknown number. A chilling voice whispered, "You won today, but you've just made enemies you can't even see." Jordan's jaw tightened. He slid his phone into his pocket and looked up at the courthouse, its towering pillars gleaming in the sunlight. The system had tried to bury him, but the truth had forced its way to the surface. Justice wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But today it was served, and as he walked away, his words echoed like a vow. Prejudice underestimates. Power corrupts. But truth endures. Life lesson? Never judge a person by their age, their color, or their appearance. The same person you underestimate today might be the one who exposes your lies tomorrow. So tell me, if you were in Jordan's place, would you have stayed quiet to protect yourself? Or spoken up even if the whole system seemed against you? Comment your answer below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.